Hey guys, if you're new here, if you only just started watching my stuff because of MSI 2025, surprise, I'm a VTuber. If you ever go to my stream or if you watch some of my other videos and you see gameplay clips, then yeah, this is what I look like most of the time. Before we get into the players and teams tier lists, there is a very big mistake that I made in my most recent video in the Everything You Need to Know About MSI 2025 video. I did a section in the second half of the video where I talked about draft, and I said, okay, I made these tier lists based on what all the teams were playing in playoffs. These are what I think the draft priorities have been globally. This is the MSI patch and the changes that are on the MSI patch that may affect the tournament. It completely slipped my mind that there was like a whole ass patch 25.12. Okay, so listen, I knew this patch existed, alright? I knew this patch existed. However, the patch was released on June 10th, or I actually think it was June 11th, and just the notes were released on the 10th. But either way, it was released on one of the 2 days, right? Globally, teams have been playing on the most recent patch. It started with the LCS, I think, like last year, and then this year, the other regions changed over. So everybody's on live patch, right? So I thought that the teams whose playoffs didn't finish until the 14th or the 15th, I thought those teams played on this patch. So when I made the video, I was running under the assumption that LPL, LCK, and LTA were all playing the last few rounds of their playoffs on 25.12. I went back and double checked because a few people were asking on the video if I had considered patch 25.12, and I was like, yeah, I didn't really think I needed to consider it that much because, you know, I was watching the end of those playoffs and it didn't really seem like that much changed, and it's like, yeah, of course nothing changed because they were playing on 25.11. Yeah, I checked the Leaguepedia wiki, and I guess that all the regions decided that they wanted to finish out playoffs on the patch that they started playoffs, which like makes perfect sense to me, right? Like, it's absolutely the right decision to just keep playing on 25.11, but for whatever reason it just slipped my mind, and I was like, oh, you know, they're all playing on live patch. I figured they'd be playing on 25.12, but spoilers, they were not playing on 25.12, so all of the tier lists that I made in that video are basically irrelevant. Like, those tier lists just don't matter anymore, because I did not factor in any of the 25.12 changes in there. So before I go through my players and teams tier list, I want to go back through and kind of redo my draft tier lists a little bit, I guess. I mean, like, I can't, like, fully redo it because, like, honestly, I'm not qualified to be able to look at a major patch like this and understand all of the champion interactions and dynamics and matchups that are going to go into it. Like, I won't be able to tell you what's going to be strong and what's going to be weak at MSI anymore. I had a really good read on patch 25.11 because that's the patch where I did pretty much like all of my analysis, but yeah, I mean, like, I'll go through this patch, we'll take a look, I'll make changes to my tier lists, but I can't promise that they'll actually be realistic changes or that my tier lists will hold up anymore, but I figured I would start out with this. So first change, Aatrox. Our goal for Aatrox changes was to be power neutral, healing ratio versus champions on the passive up, healing ratio versus minions up, champion damage healing ratio is also up. Okay, so basically there's just a bunch of healing buffs. Do I think this is enough to push Aatrox into very strong? Honestly, maybe it is, because Aatrox has a pretty fair matchup into pretty much all of these champions. Like, I'm pretty sure Aatrox loses to Rumble, and I don't know if I've seen it against York that much, but I've seen people pick Aatrox into Mbessa. Aatrox is also very commonly an answer into different tanks. I think I'm going to keep it where it is, though, because there aren't any big damage changes, so I don't know if this will, like, flip any matchups or anything. Ari's been a pro staple now for a long time due to her mobility and blind pick, blah blah blah. Charm duration 1.2 to 2, 1.2 to 1.8, and then the cooldown on the ult is 10 seconds higher at rank 1. I'm gonna be honest, I actually just, like, I don't think this matters. Like, maybe it goes down slightly, but I would still have it in very strong tier based on these changes. And knowing the players who are at this tournament, like, we literally have Knight and Chovy at this tournament. That is the best Chinese Ari and best modern Korean Ari that we've ever seen. I say modern because, like, who knows, maybe Faker's peak Ari was better than Chovy, but I mean, they're probably just gonna lock it anyway, right? I guess the only thing I could think of is, like, maybe Ari Prio goes down if those Vi nerfs that I mentioned in patch 15.13, if those changes go through and end up mattering a lot, maybe that lowers the power of the Vi Ari combo, and then Ari's Proud could drop a bit, but I really don't expect this to affect anything. Alright, now here are the changes that I'm interested in. The marksman changes. There were a lot of marksman changes on this patch, that I want to check out. They nerfed a lot of the strong ones and buffed a lot of these hyper-scaling late game champions. The main thing that I'm going to be looking for in these changes are, do these scaling champions get buffed enough levels like 1 through 5 to be playable into the lane dominant duos? Because the entire reason why you can't pick them right now is because they're just not playable into the strong lane duos. They fall too far behind in early game. Like they'll literally just lose lane by like 1,000 gold, and then the game is just unplayable, right? So unless these marksman changes are geared towards giving these marksmen more power in the lane phase, it doesn't matter how strong their late game is going to be, because they're just not going to get there if they don't have that early game assistance, or if all the lane dominant champions don't get nerfed hard enough early. Like, it has to be one of the two, right? So let's take a look at this. Base stats: level 1 attack speed up, onslaught movement speed up, calibrum moonshot damage up by 10. So these are some decent early game changes. The level 1 attack speed, I mean, it's obviously not like that big of a bump, but maybe it's the type of bump where Aphelios can hit the wave a little bit faster level 1 and contest level 2 with certain support pairings. The onslaught movement speed is obviously going to be nice for early trading, and then, you know, plus 10 damage, like, we'll take it, right? It's something. I mean, I would be down to move Aphelios up. These don't seem like the type of changes that scream to me that Aphelios will suddenly be insanely strong, unless I'm just, like, mega underestimating the movement speed change. I don't know, I would still, like, right now, I would still view it in my head as like, playable, probably roughly where Sivir is. If anything, I might still prefer Sivir more because of the control that she can have over mid waves. Let's take a look. Aurora. Aurora's been the champion's been tricky to make work. Base magic resistance up by 2. Ultimate damage up by 10%. Wow. Okay, so that's actually kind of crazy. So let's think about it. Her build right now is like Liandry's and like Rod of Ages. Like, we're not really seeing too much death cap or anything, so in terms of 10% AP increase, we're looking at maybe, what, 20-30 more damage on the ult? I mean, like, it's nice. This base magic resistance change I think will be very helpful. Anything that allows Aurora to kind of survive in early lane is going to be really nice. I'm thinking especially for AL. AL was in love with Aurora. I think Shanks played it something like 10 times and had a 100% win rate. I would be down to just move it up. And then I guess we'll also have to think about top lane, right? Like, we know that some teams have been willing to flex it even before the change. Also, by the way, if I move my head a little bit, Mordekaiser's here. There's Mordekaiser. But if I... like, Gen G were willing to flex it. I remember Gen G had a game where they picked Aurora, and then they decided that they wanted a different mid matchup, I think is what it was. So they locked in Renekton, and then Chovy took the Renekton, and Keen took the Aurora, and that was like before the buffs, right? So maybe this is enough to bring Aurora into good pick to... no, I'm gonna leave it unplayable. I'm not convinced, especially because, like, this is a base magic resistance buff, right? So, like, the meta right now is that mid laners are all magic damage champions for the most part. Like, you have Corki, Yone, and Tristana, right? But for the most part, they're all magic damage champions. So this will help Aurora a lot in mid lane. In terms of top lane, this won't help nearly as much. I mean, like, maybe it's a better answer into Rumble or something. But honestly, like, I don't know. I'm not seeing it super hard. I feel like the magic resist won't really help her top. Azir, movement speed down 5. Attack speed per level down 0.5. That actually seems like a fairly sizable change to me. Like, I could be reading it wrong, but the whole entire thing with Azir right now is that he's very, very strong if you can get him to like 3-4 items, he can start carrying late game fights. So if his movement speed is being hit and his attack speed is being hit, that could hurt. I don't know if I'm willing to take him out of meta defining, but I might do like that for now. I mean, there's a chance that this change might shoot him down to like here, but I mean, overall his role is like still the same, right? Like, he'll still build the same items, he'll still function the same in team fights. I don't know if these changes are enough to really dissuade people from playing him, because like, these changes, the movement speed change will impact him early, of course, but the attack speed per level change won't impact him early. I don't know if 5 movement speed is enough to just completely gut his lane phase. So, like, if teams before were thinking that they can make it to mid-late game with Azir, I don't see how these changes specifically would make them think that he can just no longer make it to 3 items anymore. And then once he gets to 3 items, I don't know if these changes are enough to weaken his role within the game, that he would still not function the same and pair well with the same type of champions. So I think I will keep him in meta defining, but move him down. But there is totally a chance that he gets shot down way more than I think. Bard, movement speed up by 5. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. Movement speed buffs are very big. Like, the Azir -5 is a big change. Bard up by 5 is a big change. Every single little bit of movement speed helps. That said, I mean, like, usually when you pick Bard, you're picking it because Bard is a specifically good answer into what the enemy team comp has. I think the only type of change that would increase Bard's pickability in pro play right now would be if you gave him some kind of damage tweak, like if you gave him, I don't know, plus 20 damage on his Q or something. I think that would raise his pick rate, because then all of a sudden he becomes more of a lane dominant champion, which allows you to pick him more easily into some of the lane dominant duos that we have. But for now, I feel like adding +5 movement speed is a good, it's like a strong change, but it won't change his lane matchups. It won't make any of his lane matchups easier, I don't think. And it won't change the spots in which he is picked, which is like mostly, you know, if the enemy backline is double immobile, right? So let's say that you have Orianna Varus. Like, let's say the enemy team just like drafted a control comp and they have Orianna Varus. Maybe that's an angle to go Bard. I don't think that +5 movement speed will like change that or make him pickable in more spots. So I'm gonna keep Bard where he is. Bel'Veth. R cast range increases matches her E attack range. I mean, like, we do have some Bel'Veth players in the tournament. And by some, I mean one, and that's Elyoya. But I don't know. Maybe Elyoya would play it. It is a decent AD jungle meta, clearly, because a lot of the AP champions are solid. Like, I'm trying to imagine a world where maybe you could pair Bel'Veth with some of the point and click stuff, like Annie or Ryze. Maybe you could get some value early and start snowballing. I'm hesitant. I would be surprised if Bel'Veth comes back in, but fuck it. We'll put her in Fringe. We'll put her like above Morgana. Maybe she'll be picked. Garen. E nerfed early, buffed later, and a bug fix. Nah, I don't think that suddenly makes Garen playable. I mean, like, most of the time when you picked Garen, it was into very specific matchups, right? Like, you would pick it into Jax, you would pick it into Cassante. There were a few others, but I'm just forgetting. But, like, those champions, like, aren't strong right now, right? So, I don't think you can be picking Garen into any of these champions, honestly. I don't think that would go very well for you. Especially not if you're going to get your early game nerfed. Gwen. Base health down by 20. Hallowed Mist cooldown increased by 2. This is, like, big, actually. Because Gwen's main draw right now, at least in my opinion, like, obviously, like, Gwen's overall draw is, like, scaling and side laning, good at team fighting, right? Like, she can do it all once you get to late game. But the reason why she's been having a mini resurgence in the meta, whereas, you know, like, after the initial changes went through, she kind of dropped in prio. At one point, she was probably just, like, the strongest top laner in the game in pro play, but not anymore. But the reason why she's seen a resurgence is, as an answer to Rumble, people have been going this exhaust setup with Gwen to match Rumble, and then the idea is that you can be more useful than the Rumble later, and then there's some other stuff like the Hallowed Mist is good against the Equalizer and whatnot, but mostly you're just playing to outscale inside and be more useful in teamfights and stuff. But it's a very fragile matchup. I mean, like, it's kind of the type of matchup where people are like, Gwen will lose into Rumble unless I take Exhaust to help me lane, and it's like a very fine line, right? I feel like any little touch you make to Gwen could just destroy this entire matchup, even if you go Exhaust. And, like, these are big, right? 20 base health early, and then W cooldown increased by 2 early, when W is the spell that you max last. I could see this change single-handedly killing the Gwen Rumble matchup, which, if true, would definitely drop Gwen's priority. So I'm going to move her back to maybe, like, here. The reason why I have her behind something like Renekton is because I feel like if Gwen is no longer a suitable... Like, Gwen obviously still has the upside of having the scaling and the side laning and the team fighting and blah blah blah. But if she can't match Rumble anymore, that's one of the champions very strong that she no longer has a good matchup into. As opposed to... Because, like, you could pick Gwen into, like, either of the tanks too, right? So it was, like, tanks plus Rumble. Now, when you compare that to Renekton, it's like if she can't be picked into Rumble anymore, Renekton is an answer into Yorick. So Renekton beats Yorick in lane, Renekton beats Ambessa in lane, so it's like Renekton has more reasonable matchups against the very strong champions. So that's why I would put Gwen here, as opposed to something like Cho'Gath, who's just kind of like serves a similar role to Sion and Ornn, like maybe has a decent matchup into Yorick, and that's about it. Let's keep going. Jax. Bonus attack speed per stack increased by 1.5%. That's a lot, no? Like, level 1, that's 40%. And who are the top laners that we have at this tournament? I mean, we have Doran is a really good Jax player. Bin is obviously a very good Jax player. Shit, I think I'll put Jackson very strong. This seems like a good change for him, to make him more pickable. Alright, this is a really big one. Callista, base health -20, cooldown of Q +1. Q cooldown +1 is like a decent nerf to her, but I don't think it's like game changing. I am wondering about this -20 health. Like here, I'm trying to think about it this way, okay? So Callista's main pairings right now are Nico and Renata. I think that the base health change, once Renata has bailout, base health probably isn't as important, right? Because the idea is that you're like fighting to the death anyway, and then you're casting your rend once you're in the bailout, and then you're just reviving. So I guess the question would be like, does this make Callista's level 1 trash enough? And then of course, like if you're pairing it with Nico, then Nico's just gonna get pushed for you anyway, unless there's some kind of big Nico nerf in this patch. I don't know. I mean, it's weird because 20 base health, in theory, should be a pretty major change, especially when you also decrease your Q cooldown by a second, or increase your Q cooldown by a second. But I feel like the reason why Callista's strong right now isn't actually because Callista's strong. I feel like it's because Callista's best pairings are strong. Like Renata's strong, Nico is strong, Ashe is playable. So I'm not convinced that nerfing Callista is the solution to stop getting Callista picked. I don't know. There's a chance that this completely takes her out, but I'm thinking that it shouldn't matter too much unless her support pairings are nerfed. AP ratio increased by 5%, R cooldown decreased by 5%. So this, I mean, the R change doesn't really do anything, does it? Like what, you could cast your R once every other wave before, and you can cast it once every other wave now? And then increasing her skill shot by 5%. Maybe if you increased her Q or her W by 5%, which are much easier to land, but LeBlanc's E isn't necessarily that easy to land. It's a very unreliable form of CC in pro play. I don't think this brings LeBlanc into the meta. I mean, like, obviously Lee Sin is pretty strong on the patch, and LeBlanc-Lee Sin is a good combo. We have some good LeBlanc players at the tournament, so maybe this change motivates players to try it. I'll add it into Fringe. We'll put it above here. We'll put it here, because, like, the only reason why I have Lissandra in here is because Lissandra is not a very strong laner right now, like at all. Like that's the reason why she's not picked, is because she legit just can't lane into these other champions. But I have her here because she serves the same role as Annie, so if a team like really wanted to go Annie playstyle, but Annie was out because Fearless, Lissandra might be playable. And then Zilean is only here because like this is like kind of a cope take, but I was watching Nemesis on Los Ratones pick Zilean mid in like games 3, 4, and 5 of Fearless, like late into Fearless, he was picking Zilean mid when like some of the harder matchups were out, and it looked kind of playable. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll add Zilean here. But so basically, what I'm saying is I'll put LeBlanc above the champions who are really only here in theory, but like have no actual practice. Whereas like we've seen practical use cases for these other mid laners in the tournament so far, so I'll put LeBlanc there. I don't think these are the types of changes that would help her be more useful in pro. Lee Sin, cooldown of E down by 1, slow amount, up by 15 early, and then increase by 10 per rank instead of 15, so you end with 5 late. I mean, essentially before the way that Lee Sin worked was that you were incentivized to not max E last, because the big slow that you get when you get rank 5 in it is super useful. But of course, if you let's say you max Q first and you max E second, right? That means that you're lacking a lot of Omnivamp from your W, which hurts his dueling. Essentially what this change does is that it makes it a lot easier to max W second, or at least that's how I see it. And then of course it also just makes him, like, it makes him a lot stronger level 1, and then it incentivizes, or not level 1, it makes him a lot stronger when E is at rank 1, and then it incentivizes him to put points into W, which makes his dueling stronger. So this change, I think, is actually definitely the type of change that we could see push Lee Sin further into the meta. Like before, I kind of had Lee Sin pegged as like an AD jungler that you pick when all of the other good AD jungle options are out, but it's actually probably like way better now. Let's see, maybe we can put it like here. Could be higher. There's a chance that Lee Sin could be way stronger than this, but I'm gonna put it here for now. Mordekaiser, Q damage increased. So it's increased by +5 per rank that you put it in. I don't think that changes anything. I think that Mordekaiser, so I have Mordekaiser in Fringe because there are some top laners who view Mordekaiser as an answer to either tanky frontliners like Sion or Ornn. You can pick Mordekaiser into those, or they'll pick Mordekaiser into like Protect the President team comps where you have one hyper carry and then a bunch of supporting casts. You just go Mordekaiser to get rid of that singular damage threat, so that way your team can just destroy them in the 4v4, right? So like that's the reason why I have Mordekaiser here. Again, it's behind my head for anybody who can't see it. It's behind there. But I don't think that this change will change either of those use cases. So I'm gonna leave Mordekaiser where he is. Nico, this is a big one. Q damage down by 20 early, but AP ratio up by 10%. And this thing is also down by 10 damage. 20 damage early is a lot, by the way, for Nico's Q. Now this is a change that I think might impact the meta. Because now if I'm thinking about it, like if Nico, like this could be the type of change that does something like this, and then if Nico's down here, then Callista also goes down here, right? So like that could be big. I don't care about this W change. This W change just shouldn't matter that much. The main one is her Q change, because that's why she gets prio in lane so easily, is her Q is 1, good at pushing waves, and 2, a very spammable ability that you can use to poke the enemy and then just like force them back. So when you remove the damage early, that's tough. That's tough for Nico support. Now here's the question though, does this make Nico mid slightly better? When you actually have access to items, and then you can make your Q stronger. Does this change anything for Nico mid? Maybe Nico mid is playable. Yeah, why not? We'll throw it in playable. Nidalee. Damage AP ratio increased by 15. Okay, so this affects top lane Nidalee not at all, and it helps jungle Nidalee out. So top lane Nidalee, you stay where you are. Jungle Nidalee, keep in mind, this includes the change that she got in the next patch, where she increases her Q spear damage by I think like 25% at max range. So man, now all of a sudden that's what, 25%? Well, it's like an additive 25% more on top of a 300% on her Q, and now she's getting 15% more AP ratio on her E. That's a lot. She might just be the strongest AP jungler on the patch now. I'll throw her into Lee Sin tier. We'll put her up there. I think we'll definitely see some junglers try it out. Maybe there's a chance that it does the same thing as last year, where it just starts completely taking over the entirety of MSI. I could see it. Oh, and also in case anybody's wondering, the reason why Lee Sin stays here in mid is because the E change literally doesn't affect mid lane at all, because it doesn't change his wave clear. Rammus, you know, this is like, this is way above my pay grade. I'm just going to hope really hard that these changes are not enough to bring Rammus into pro play and that I don't need to worry about it. Rumble, this is a big one. Q damage. Percentage max health damage down later. Electro Harpoon slowed down by 5, which essentially is slowed down by 10, because you would hit them with it twice, and then the slow is additive. Enhanced slow keeps the same new ratio. So the E damage is untouched, and the Q damage is untouched early. I think I'm going to leave Rumble where he is, because his Q is the same early, so his early pressure should not be affected that much. And then while the E change is a reasonable nerf, one of his main answers, Gwen, also received nerfs. So I'm going to say that those two balance each other out, and assuming that Rumble's other matchups stay the same because his Q damage is still the same level 1, I'm going to cautiously leave him at the top where he is. However, I would say this does solidify the choice not to put him in meta-defining. Samira. Style bonus movement speed per stack. It's going up a little bit early. If I remember correctly, didn't this used to be just like 3 flat or something? So this probably doesn't matter. Q flare, base damage increased by 5. This could matter. This could matter. We've seen before how much small increases in damage can impact champions when they're using it on a spammable ability. Like, we've seen cases in the past where Kennen will get like a 5% AP ratio increase to his Q, which, keep in mind, before he has an item and has less than 100 AP, that would be less than 5 damage. And we've seen a change like that turn Kennen from borderline unpickable into like one of the strongest champions in top lane. So when you add 5 damage to an ability that has like, I mean, like Samira's Q cooldown, it starts at like 4 or something, but then it ends up going down to like 2 or some shit. And that's assuming you have like no ability haste, right? Which you probably won't, because you're Samira, but it's a very spammable ability. Adding 5 flat damage to it might actually help her out in lane. Screw it, maybe Samira is playable. Senna, soul drop chance per minion kill 14 to 10. Ooh, that's big. That's a lot of that's a lot of souls right there. Is it that big though? If I remember correctly, Senna, like back when she was pickable, her soul drop rate I think was like 8.6 or something, or like 8.1. Let me check her patch notes, because I'm pretty sure it used to be 8 point something. So this 10 is like still technically higher than it was. Yeah, missed rate, spawn rate on minion kills increased from 14 to 14 from 8.4. And then what do we have before that? Okay, so it was It was 10. Yeah, it was increased to 10 and then it got nerfed. That's kind of what I thought, that it was floating around 8 for a while. But this change puts her roughly where she was for most of her playable career. So it's not going to completely take her out. I will move her down to Smolder tier. Yeah, let's do that. Shen, one of the strongest top laners in the game. Yeah, Shen is like a really strong solo queue top laner in regions not named China. Shadow Dash, damage down. This should not change any of the spots where he is picked in pro play, I wouldn't think, either on support or top. Talia, base magic resistance down by 2. Oh, empowered damage down by 10. Empowered damage down by 10. I mean, like, she doesn't use worked ground Q that much, because she has to use regular Q first, and then she can use the worked ground Q. So even if she, like, sets up the worked ground beforehand, she's probably only throwing worked ground Q maybe, like, 3-4 times a fight max. So that would end up, like, taking out, like, maybe, like, 100 damage from her kit overall. This is the change I'm really looking at. Base magic resist down by 2. In a meta like this, that's rough. That's a rough one, buddy. You know, I could make a really controversial move here right now. I'm thinking about it. I think there's a chance that we might see something like this. Because remember, the reason why Annie came back into the meta is that despite the fact that she has a generally weaker lane phase than these other champions, she pairs extremely well with all of the AD fighter junglers that are in the meta. And essentially what this patch has been telling me is you are weaker, you are weaker, you are weaker. So now all of a sudden, all of the common matchups that Annie would have to play into are now easier to play into. Talia has less magic resist. Azir has less base movement speed. I actually low-key forget what the Aria change is, even though I just read it like 20 minutes ago, but whatever, it's fine. But like her competition is weaker, basically, in mid lane. Like she's a lot easier to play now matchup-wise, and she still has all these amazing pairings, because like not all of these junglers have been getting touched. I mean, like at this point we're on T, we're on the letter T, and so that means that like Neferi and Pantheon escaped any change whatsoever. Lee Sin got buffed. Nidalee got buffed. Oh, I guess, I mean, Nidalee wouldn't really matter at all, but yeah. I'm still thinking maybe Vi might be dragged down. We'll see. But yeah, you know what? Fuck it. That's my take. That is my take. My prediction is that Annie is now the strongest mid laner on the patch. Cool, let's keep going. Actually, on that note, I think Aurora might also get up there too. There's a chance that with those Aurora changes, she could see herself up there as well. We'll see. Twisted Fate. Bonus attack speed up by 5. Cooldown down by 20. Wait, wasn't his cooldown nerfed again? His R cooldown was nerfed again in 25. No, it's actually like still a buff. When you put both patches in together, his ultimate is stronger by 10 seconds. And he got back half of the attack speed that he lost like a year ago or something. I will wait for my judgment on Twisted Fate before I see the rest of the marksman changes. Twisted Fate will definitely be stronger. I also think that this change may help bring Twisted Fate top back in, because the attack speed change will help him a lot. So let's throw Twisted Fate back into... I mean, we have some really good Twisted Fate top players here at this tournament. Like Keen, for example. Zeus was pretty good at it too. I will put it in playable for top lane. And then mid lane we bring him up to good pick. Varus, base armor down by... I'll do that. I don't want to like overreact and say that Kai'Sa's going to be really strong now, because, okay, so if Varus is weaker, then that, of course, will make Kai'Sa stronger, because Kai'Sa will have, like, Kai'Sa, her two, like, Kalista and Varus are both hard lane matchups for her, so ideally, if both of them get nerfed, that makes Kai'Sa stronger, right? On that note, that also makes champions like Jinx is stronger, Misfortune is stronger, Sivir is better, Aphelios is better, Zeri is better. But I don't just want to automatically say that she's going to be, like, insane, because Nico also got nerfed, right? So, like, her best support for protecting her weak lane phase also got touched. Oh, here's some big Vi changes, looks like. Okay. Target max health damage. It's the same level 1. You max this ability second most games, sometimes third. So by the time that you start maxing it, it's probably wouldn't matter too much. Bonus attack speed down as well. Okay, maybe you just don't max W second anymore. Let's see the E change. Bonus damage. Up by 30 flat, down by 10 scaling. So that's basically just always a buff. So we have to also consider this with her passive change, where her passive went down by 2%. So here's the thing. You'll be using her passive, so obviously like with the W, every time you proc her passive on the W, it decreases the cooldown of her passive, like the shield. And so if you're not maxing this anymore, that's a lot of attack speed you're just not getting. Like, let's assume Vi will max E second. Now, I'm not sure if she will, actually. I'm looking at these changes, and I think that W max second might still be, like, playable. But if we assume she maxes W last, that means that from levels, like, 8 to 13, she will be missing out on 30% attack speed, just completely missing out on 30% attack speed, which will decrease how quickly she can reduce the cooldown on her passive. But if we're maxing E, then maybe that offsets that a little bit. I'm trying to think, because like the primary way that you get passive procs on Vi is you do Q auto E, R auto E, or you do R auto E, Q auto E. And then that maximizes the amount that you're proccing your W, right? So like obviously that doesn't change when you decrease the attack speed. However, we've also been seeing a rise of people just QRing or RQing. For example, the Vi into Nefiri matchup. If you give Nefiri any time to breathe, she can just press W, right? So the idea is that you Q her first, and then if your Q hits, instead of trying to slip in an auto or an E, you just insta-press R, so that way you can keep the CC chain, so that way the Nefiri gets CC'd the entire time. Or obviously if she W's the Q, then you can just R her face right after. So like that's how that matchup goes. You don't want to be slipping in that extra stuff. So like, I don't know, I feel like in most of the use cases, the attack speed decrease probably doesn't matter that much. It will decrease her objective taking speed, maybe? I think Vi will be fine. I think she'll be fine. Yorick, Mistwalker attack speed. 0.5, 8 to 80% attack speed. Oh, it's 8 to 80% total attack speed, whereas this is bonus attack speed, right? Am I reading that right? Because this just is 8 to 80 attack speed. So let's think about it. If Yorick goes Trinity Force, then the Mistwalker attack speed will be like just the plus 33 or 30% or whatever Trinity Force gives you. But it would be just that versus this, which is 8 to 80. How does this scale? What is the level scaling on this? I don't know. I'm not breaking out the calculator right now. Q damage down by 20 at max rank. I think Yorick has enough questionable matchups that I feel free dragging him down a bit. Like, he doesn't do great into Scion. He doesn't do great into Cho'Gath. He loses to Renekton outright. He loses to Nidalee outright. He's fine into Rumble. He's fine into Mbessa and Ornn. I don't know how he'll be into Jax after these changes. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Yorick is going to be, like, insane anymore the way that he was. Let's see. Zeri. Ultimate. Damage up by 25, plus 15% bonus AD. Chain lightning damage up by 10%. So this kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier, where this change does absolutely nothing to help her early game, but it makes her late game stronger, which is nice, because I feel like a lot of the games where I see Zeri where she does make it to mid-late game, she just hasn't been as effective as she needs to be. So I think this does add some more power there. We're gonna do a big overhaul of this ADC tier list, I think. Once I'm done reading these patch notes, I'll think about everything I just read. Okay, Grasp, ranged effectiveness going down by 20. This doesn't matter because Nidalee and Jace proc at melee anyway. I guess this might make Aurora top weaker, but that's about it. Autocon spawn rate. That shouldn't matter too much. Dragon basic attacks trigger on-hit effects. Dragon basic attacks now respect dodge. ARAM. Okay, so let's think about this. I think I'm pretty set on these. I want to think a lot harder about this. Kalista and Varus got nerfed. Senna got nerfed. Aphelios and Zeri got buffed. The thing that you have to consider is that when Kalista and Varus get nerfed, those are indirect buffs to Smolder, Senna, Jinx, Misfortune, Sivir, Aphelios, and Zeri. So we should move everything accordingly. Kalista is hurt by the Nico changes. Ezreal should remain relatively untouched because he can still pair with a lot of different champions. And he still has the Karma pairing. Karma was completely untouched as well. Kai'Sa gets slightly nerfed because Nico was nerfed, but she gets slightly buffed because Kalista and Varus were nerfed. So I think that puts her at relatively the same spot. Varus kind of got his entire face kicked in, low-key, but I think he's long enough range that he might be fine anyway. Jin's purpose within a game is to try and neutralize lane phases. If Kalista and Varus are weaker, and therefore indirectly buffing all of the scaling marksmen, Jin is overall going to be weaker because it is harder to play a neutralizing utility AD carry against scalers, because you can't match their damage later and you don't have the tools to stomp them in lane. So we should move Jin down. Corki's role should not change. Jinx is stronger now. Ashe, we will keep here. She still has Ash Renata combo. She still has Ash Seraphine combo. She will still be a strong answer into Kai'Sa, Jinx, Aphelios, Zeri, all of those. She'll be a good answer into those, because she is one of the champions who can bully lane pretty hard. So she'll stay up there. I think if these champions rise in prio, I think that Caitlyn is now stronger as well. Draven will be stronger. God, this is tough. Because I don't just want to throw everybody into good pick, right? It's obviously not true. You know what? I think I just, if I like commit more to it, I think Sivir is in good pick. Zeri is in good pick. Aphelios is playable. Misfortune is in good pick. Because the value of Misfortune's ult should be a little bit higher now. And also she'll be able to contest a mid-wave again. Like, if Varus is weaker and Kalista is weaker, and then these ADCs come back, Misfortune has an easier time contesting mid-waves. I think Lucian prio will probably go down. God, I really don't want to just throw everything into good pick, but it like, unironically, maybe, because like Lucian and Corki are like nice options if you feel like you need something with mobility and Ezreal is down. And obviously Lucian still benefits from the fact that the lane dominant marksmen are out. I don't really see a world where Xayah becomes stronger. She has too many bad matchups still. And then also to note is that Aphelios is probably gonna, or not Aphelios, Yasuo is gonna be a little bit weaker because it was mostly used as an answer to some of the immobile utility champions. Like, for example, Varus. The Yasuo was an answer into Varus. So if Varus is weaker, Yasuo is going to be a little bit weaker. Okay, I'm going to settle here. In my opinion, I am not qualified to be able to actually understand what all of these changes do. I am not confident in this list at all. My general thoughts are that because Kalista and Varus are weaker, the champions that did struggle in early games, so Kai'Sa, Smolder, Jinx, Sivir, Misfortune, and Zeri, and Aphelios, should all be a little bit stronger. That said, if those champions rise in prio, I think that makes Caitlyn, Ashe, and Draven stronger as well, because those champions can answer any of those much more easily. Like, there will be more angles to pick those champions. So that's the main logic behind why I have stuff where I have it. I'm not confident at all, though. This is like this is a very raw first time reaction to seeing these changes. I'm not confident, but okay, let's go through. Top lane, these are my new changes. This is jungle, this is mid, this is bot, and this is support. I am not confident in any of these. I just figured I wanted to address the fact that I didn't consider this patch before, since I thought that the back half of playoffs are played on it, since all the regions were playing on live patch, but then they decided to keep the patch consistent anyway, so yeah, I figured I should address it in some way. So these would be my updated tier lists, but I'm really not confident because I haven't seen any of the games, and I'm not good enough at the game to be able to understand like all of the nuanced matchup dynamics and like combo piece dynamics. But yeah, okay, that's champion tier lists. Let's move on to, honestly, shit, I've literally been sitting here talking for an hour. Do I just make a draft video? Do I just have this be a draft video and then I'll make a separate players and teams tier list video? Let's just do that. I'll just post this on its own as like a whoopsie daisy, I messed up my breakdown video. Here's my updated draft stuff. And then in a separate, oh, spoilers. In a separate video, I'll do my teams tier list because yeah, I don't want this video to be like too long. That was kind of the entire point of me doing the team breakdowns, was that it would make these videos shorter. So yeah, this will be its own separate video. Okay, bye.